This is the story of Yifeng, a guy who thinks he's just a regular dude with no cultivation powers. But here's the wild part, he's actually the most overpowered guy in the entire universe. Like, we're talking one finger can wipe out a whole universe level strong. But the funniest thing? Yifeng has no idea how powerful he really is. He just goes around living his chill life, completely unaware that he's basically unstoppable. So how did he end up this insanely strong without even realizing it? That's what we're gonna find out in this video. Trust me, this Manhwa is one of the best out there, no cap. So sit back, relax, and watch till the end. You're gonna love it. So the story starts in the Xinjiang continent, where people train to become immortals. One day, a bald guy showed up surrounded by broken rocks. He called himself Garbage Ash and said he discovered a weird new way to cultivate. According to him, just doing what he did for 3 minutes would make anyone obsessed with immortal cultivation. After that, the whole continent jumped into a new era of cultivation. In a small peaceful town called Jiangping City, people noticed pillars of light shining in the distance. That meant someone just had a breakthrough. One of the lights even showed that someone reached the rank of Great Martial Master. Everyone was super excited, except one person, Yifeng. He sat back in his chair, looking bored and annoyed. While everyone else celebrated, he just wondered who got so lucky this time. Yifeng remembered what happened 5 years ago. He had been gaming for 90 hours straight, playing an immortal cultivation game. That earned him an achievement called Traversal. Basically, he passed out and ended up in this new world. When he first got there, he saw buildings and people floating everywhere. It felt like a dream. At first, he was shocked, but then he just accepted it. After all, most people who end up in another world usually get a system or some cheat power. Then suddenly something grabbed him tight. His eyes went red, and he started coughing hard. He had no idea what was happening. A weird, muscular dude appeared. He had a box on his head and a shiny needle between his legs. He squeezed Yifeng's head between his arms and said, "Glad I got here in time. Nice to meet you." He gave 2 thumbs up and said he was the thing every transverser dreams of, the system golden finger. Yifeng was down on all fours, confused. The needle sparkled in front of him while the system guy just chilled, saying it was normal for people to stare at him because he had the best figure in the golden finger world. Yifeng suddenly started throwing up rainbows. The system guy freaked out and asked, "Are you trying to embarrass me?" Then he flexed again and told Yifeng to listen up. He was about to get a system filled with martial arts, boxing, sword skills, staff techniques, palm strikes, forging, and even drawing books. All of it was top tier. Yifeng got hyped. He imagined himself floating in the sky, practicing divine powers, battling strong opponents, and finishing off anything in his way. And of course, he pictured himself surrounded by beautiful women, living that dream fantasy life. And right there, floating in front of him, it all began. The system golden finger confidently told Yifeng that he'd help max out all his martial arts skills. He even mentioned a 600 square meter martial arts gym where Yifeng could start his training. Then, just like that, the gym appeared out of nowhere. Yifeng pumped his fist, got a little teary, and said he was finally ready to begin his journey to become an immortal. But the system golden finger froze. He looked confused and asked, "Wait, what do you mean, immortal cultivation journey?" He pointed to the box on his head that said spiritual root and told Yifeng, "To cultivate, you need this." Yifeng stood there, completely still. His face went pale. He had a feeling this might be a problem. The system then said it wasn't his fault and that he had other people waiting for help. So, just like that, he said goodbye and disappeared into thin air, leaving Yifeng standing there, and his new gym already falling apart. Yifeng started sweating. He had no idea what just happened. He rushed to the spiritual root testing center in town. He placed his finger on a glowing device, and the result came in, no spiritual root. Yifeng cursed and dropped to his knees. The receptionist was speechless, staring at the device in disbelief. Then he shouted, "Everyone has spiritual roots. I've never seen someone with nothing. Are you even human?" Yifeng just stood there, frozen. Then the guy told him, politely, that the path to immortality just wasn't meant for him. For 5 years, Yifeng kept going back to the testing center, trying again and again. And every time, it was the same answer, no spiritual root. Eventually, he just gave up. He told himself it wasn't a big deal. If he couldn't rise to the top or experience crazy power like other people, that was fine. Those things weren't for him anyway. All those fancy martial titles, martial practitioner, martial master, grandmaster, venerable, king, emperor, ancestor, celestial, saint, supreme, all of them felt like nothing to him now. Just titles that floated away like leaves in the wind. Yifeng sat under an umbrella in the town square, staring into space with the monument of the system golden finger behind him. He said, "None of this matters." In his head, he imagined kneeling in front of a main character, one of those chosen ones, surrounded by even more main characters. And he heard a voice say, "People without spiritual roots can never be the main character." That's when Yifeng decided he'd just be a salted fish. No drama. Then he stretched, stood up, and looked at his tiny piggy bank. He figured the only way to survive now now was by doing basic stuff, selling books, setting up a stall, maybe recruiting a few helpers. That was his life now. Just then, a cute kid with orange hair and big round eyes appeared. She looked amazed by something at his stall. Yifeng noticed her right away. She was with a beautiful girl who had long white hair. The kid ran up, pointed at his books, and shouted to her sister, "Hey, check these out. I've never seen these before." Yifeng looked at them and thought, they're probably cultivators, definitely rich. So he stood up straight and decided he was gonna treat them like VIPs, with full gentlemanly energy. Yifeng smiled and greeted them politely, asking how he could help. The white-haired girl was surprised to meet someone so well-mannered in Jiangping City, but still thought it was a shame he was just a regular human. She looked at him with a straight face and told the little girl, Luo Li, that it was time to leave. But as she turned to go, Yifeng quickly held up the books and said, "Wait a second." He told Luo Li that she had amazing bones and rare talent, like, once in a million years level. He said she was clearly a martial arts genius, so those secret manuals he made, which usually sold for 10 gold each, he'd give them to her for half price. Luo Li's face lit up. She pointed to herself and asked, "You mean me? I'm a genius?" She grinned and said she wanted Master Ma's lightning whiplash. Yifeng was surprised, but before anything else could happen, the white-haired girl grabbed Luo Li by the hair and said they were leaving. She told her it was better to spend money on useful stuff, not random books. Luo Li kicked and dragged her feet, saying she didn't care, she wanted that book. The white-haired girl got super annoyed and asked how Luo Li had time for books when they were in the middle of a serious mission at Castle Peak Gate. But Luo Li kept yelling that she didn't care and begged her sister to buy it. That pushed her over the edge. Her forehead was twitching from frustration as she yelled that they were immortal cultivators, and had no business buying regular human drawings. Yifeng, standing at his stall, cursed under his breath. He was furious but too nervous to say anything. Then Luo Li threw a tantrum and suddenly transformed. Her body got huge and super buff. In a flash, the ground cracked open, smoke shot out, and Luo Li stood there, still big and muscular, grinning while holding the tiny book in her massive hands. She waved at her sister and said they could leave now. Yifeng was frozen, his jaw basically on the floor. The white-haired girl calmly tossed some coins onto the stall and said, "Here's the money." She asked Luo Li if she was happy, and Luo Li smiled and said, "Thank you." As they walked off, Luo Li shrank back to normal size. Her sister reminded her to keep it together next time around mortals, especially because of her crazy physique. Yifeng finally snapped out of it and started yelling after them. He shouted, "Hey, that book costs 10 gold each." Then he kept going, calling them annoying cultivators and yelling for them to never show their faces again or he'd blast them away next time. Meanwhile, the two of them were already outside Jiangping City. The white-haired girl sighed and rubbed the back of her neck while Luo Li kept talking about how awesome the book was. She said it was the coolest thing ever and that they should read it together. Her sister sighed again and finally gave in. She reached out for the book and told herself, "Whatever, just deal with it." The white-haired lady flipped through Yifeng's book and looked totally confused. She couldn't make sense of what she was reading. Then suddenly, a massive wave of energy burst out from the book. Her hair flew up, and she screamed, eyes wide. What she felt was something only cultivators could sense. It was deep, like feeling abandoned by the universe one second, then surrounded by festival vibes the next. Behind her, glowing white loops appeared, kind of like a system effect, and two strange figures showed up in the image too. She didn't know what was trying so hard to fix her flaws and help her understand, but she felt it working. She let out another scream as her clothes suddenly fell apart from the impact. That's when it hit her, it was pure martial arts energy. Her face turned bright red. She fell to the ground, totally overwhelmed, sweating, and breathing hard. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought about how hard she had worked for a breakthrough. Yet just one page of Yifeng's book had taken her straight to the level of great martial master. Luo Li walked over, looking worried. She asked, "Sis, are you okay? Your face is super red." The white-haired girl was startled, and even more shocked when she realized Luo Li had broken through multiple levels too, just from that one book. An image of Yifeng popped into her mind, and she went pale. She realized he might actually be a world-class expert, so she made up her mind. She had to report this to her master right away. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the head of Castle Peak Gate, Lu Qingshan, held a spear glowing with golden energy. He was at the martial spirit level and had tracked down a wounded beast that had clearly been in a serious battle. Some of the people fighting it were already down. Just as Lu Qingshan was about to land the final strike, a flash of purple aura slammed into the beast first. He froze, stunned, as the aura finished the monster in one shot. A voice called out, saying, "Thanks for the help, Castle Peak Gate. Now I can claim the credit." Lu Qingshan's eyes went wide in fear. That voice came from Ning Xuanwu, the ancestor of the Xuanwu sect. He had just leveled up to the martial king level using the beast's power. Lu Qingshan was furious. He yelled that they had been hunting that beast for months and had lost a lot of people, and now this guy just swooped in and took it like it was nothing. Ning Xuanwu replied, "If you don't like it, come at me. I don't mind giving you a one-way ticket before the big tournament." Lu Qingshan froze, sweating. He realized they were in real danger. Ning Xuanwu had just broken through, and now his power was way beyond theirs. Ning Xuanwu stood confidently in front of Lu Qingshan, backed by his strong and uninjured sect members. Behind Lu Qingshan were only his tired and injured people. Ning pointed straight at Lu and said, "If you can beat me in a life or death match in 3 days, I'll let you go." Then he added, "But honestly, it's a shame. The Xuanwu sect is gonna swallow up Castle Peak Gate either way." Lu Qingshan clenched his teeth and stared at the ground, but didn't say anything back. Meanwhile, in another place, a woman stood on a stage and made an announcement. She told the crowd that their only chance to fix the current crisis was to call for some serious help. But the audience, including Yifeng, just stared back with blank faces. The lady was panicking in her head. Cultivator drama wasn't enough to grab anyone's attention anymore. She started worrying she might lose her job. Someone in the crowd muttered, "This story's kinda mid." Another said the pacing was off. Yifeng just thought it was the usual territory battle stuff, nothing exciting. Back at Castle Peak Gate, 2 young disciples were training with weapons. One of them said the big duel was only a few days away. The other replied, "I don't even know why we're training. What's the point?" The first guy said their master, Lu Qingshan, was in closed-door training and probably about to break through. Suddenly, a loud, chubby old man popped in and told them to shut up. He said he'd been with Lu Qingshan for over 30 years, and every time things got tough, their master never backed down. What they didn't know was, Lu Qingshan was actually meditating nearby, and he heard everything. He stared forward seriously while the old man said, "The harder it gets, the stronger our spirit becomes." Out of nowhere, Lu bit down on his robe to stop himself from yelling in frustration. He was shaking, and tears built up in his eyes. In his head, he cursed everything and questioned himself. How am I supposed to beat Ning Xuanwu like this? He'd been stuck at the martial spirit level for years. Deep down, he knew, if things stayed like this, he was done for. Then someone called his name, saying Lan Shui wanted to speak with him. He quickly pulled himself together, cleared his throat, and said, "Come in." A few moments later, someone placed a book in front of him, Master Ma's Lightning Whiplash. It was Lan Shui, the white-haired girl. She explained everything, and Lu Qingshan was stunned. He asked her to confirm, "Wait, this book came from a mortal?" Lan Shui nodded nervously and said Yifeng might actually be a top-tier expert hiding in plain sight. But Lu Qingshan cut her off. "That's nonsense," he said. He grabbed the book and got angry. "You're supposed to be a lead disciple of Castle Peak Gate. Instead of focusing on your cultivation, you're out here getting fooled by random people on the street." He flipped through the book and said it was useless, nothing special at all. Lan Shui asked Lu Qingshan to calm down and just take a look at the book. She said if she was lying, she'd accept any punishment. Lu agreed. But the second he opened the book, something inside him snapped. A powerful energy burst out, making the pages flutter like crazy. His eyes went wide, and his jaw dropped. Then a colorful glow appeared, and a shadow of someone meditating showed up in the middle. That energy flowed through Lu Qingshan, and suddenly, he was standing in a quiet field with the sun setting ahead. That's when he realized, he was deep in enlightenment. He thought back on everything. Lately, he hadn't really been facing the pressure from the Xuanwu sect. He'd just been running from it. No one had challenged his strength in years. Then, out of nowhere, a weird dude with stretchy arms and a glowing system finger behind him started smacking him at lightning speed, shouting stuff like, "The loose gets tighter and the tight gets tighter." Lu Qingshan got hit all over. His whole body was sore. But as he sat there drooling and crying, he let out a huge shout. He'd finally had a breakthrough. Back at Castle Peak Gate, a giant pillar of light shot into the sky, shocking everyone. Meanwhile, Yifeng was chilling with a bowl of noodles and saw the light too. He grumbled, wondering who broke through this time. Then he sniffed the noodles and complained they didn't smell good anymore. Back at the sect, Lu Qingshan was reaching for Yifeng's book, which was still smoking. Behind him, Lan Shui was overjoyed. He'd actually broken through to the martial king realm. Still blushing, Lu Qingshan turned to Lan Shui and said, "This is it. Now we can finally take down the Xuanwu sect." He told her that Yifeng's skills were insane. Just being able to draw a book filled with martial king level energy was unreal. Then he told her they had to go thank Yifeng immediately and show respect. That's when Lan Shui remembered how she once mocked the idea of buying a mortal's book. She panicked, thinking about how rude she had been. In her mind, she imagined Yifeng floating in the sky, waving a hand, and wiping out the entire sect. She was terrified now and thought, if he gets mad, we're doomed. Meanwhile, Yifeng was staring at something with a serious look. An ominous vibe filled the air, but then he suddenly smiled. He was standing in front of a boiling pot. Turns out, he was just excited that the meat was finally done. He thought to himself how mortals' training methods weren't popular here, but hey, he managed to sell a book to 2 clueless cultivators for a single gold coin. Then he traded that for 2 chunks of meat, about half a kilo. Meanwhile, off in the distance, 3 men were chasing a purple wild dog that had stolen their meat. The dog ran with the food in its mouth and, in its head, was thinking, y'all are lucky. Getting your meat eaten by me is an honor. Nobody could hear the wild dog talking, but in its true form, it introduced itself as the prince of the wolf clan from the demon world. It said it was actually at the level of martial soul. If it hadn't been betrayed by its own clan and nearly drained of all its spiritual power, it would have already finished those humans off. Calling humans weak and clueless, it suddenly spotted Yifeng, who was crouching in front of his cooking pot. The dog grinned and thought, seriously? A mortal standing in my way? This'll be easy. Even with low power, the wolf prince charged up its aura, showed its original form, and lunged at Yifeng from behind, shouting for him to disappear. Yifeng, caught off guard, turned around and locked eyes with it. But out of nowhere, he casually grabbed the wolf prince by the head. Both of them were shocked. Yifeng smiled and asked, when did you show up in Jiangping City? The wolf prince froze, mouth hanging open, completely confused. His powers didn't work? He was furious. He blasted out a strong lightning-like aura and yelled again. Yifeng didn't even flinch, but the meat he was cooking spilled all over the ground. That's when things got serious. Yifeng's face turned dark. He stared at the wolf prince, still dangling by the head, and the poor dog was shaking. He couldn't understand what just happened. Was he scared? He told himself no way. He wouldn't be scared of a mortal, not even if 5 martial spirit-level cultivators ganged up on him. But then Yifeng, now fully annoyed, pointed at him and said, you're kinda cute. Bet you taste good. The wolf prince freaked out inside. Wait, he's gonna eat me. Who even is this guy? Meanwhile, Lu Qingshan and Lan Shui were flying across the sky. Back at the scene, Yifeng stood over the wolf prince, who was lying on the ground looking completely done, like his soul had just left his body. Yifeng tilted his head, confused at how scared this thing was. Later, at market, a little girl with injuries got thrown out of the Qingshan gate for sneaking in. Some people mocked her, saying she didn't even have spiritual roots, so what made her think she could cultivate? They warned her not to come back again or she'd regret it. Feeling crushed, the girl dropped to her knees and slammed her tiny fist into the ground. She looked up and asked the heavens if she was really just a loser with no way to change her fate. She apologized to her uncle for letting him down. Then, out of nowhere, Yifeng called out to her. He had the wolf prince tied up beside him like a prize. He looked at the girl's stance and said, yo, are you trying to sneak some of my meat? Then he added, if you want food, you gotta pay up. This barbecue is world famous. Not even your dad could get it for free. Zhongqing stood up, clearly annoyed, and yelled that even if he starved, he wouldn't eat Yifeng's food. He turned his back and started walking away, but then the smell of the barbecue hit his nose. His pride crumbled fast. Without even realizing it, Zhongqing grabbed 2 skewers, one in each hand, and stuffed his mouth full while still saying he wasn't eating Yifeng's food. Yifeng just stared at him, speechless, and shouted, hey, that's robbery. Then Yifeng's face turned serious. He pointed at Zhongqing and said, so, you got kicked out of the Qingshan sect? Still chewing, Zhongqing was surprised, like it wasn't already obvious. Then he corrected Yifeng, saying, also, I'm a boy. Yifeng looked confused. He went back to grilling his meat and muttered, with that haircut? You should have been an idol, not trying to become immortal. He shook his head and thought to himself that Zhongqing's situation kinda reminded him of his own, both not great. Once the meat was done, Yifeng looked at Zhongqing and said, you've got nowhere to go, right? I happen to need help. Come work with me. Then he casually tossed him the keys to the martial arts hall. Zhongqing caught them midair, a bit stunned. Yifeng added, I'm going to get some seasoning. You go back and watch the place. Zhongqing tried to protest, saying, I never agreed to be your assistant. But then he looked at the keys in his hand and blushed a little. He held them close and told himself to just go with it. After all, if he got a stable job in Jiangping City, his parents would be relieved. About 30 minutes later, Lu Qingshan and Lan Shui quietly entered what looked like Yifeng's home. They opened the door and called out politely as they stepped into a clean courtyard. They were immediately met with weird statues and strange paintings. Lu Qingshan's eyes went wide and his jaw dropped as he stared at the paintings. There was something powerful about them, an aura you could feel just by being near them. One painting seemed to be yelling about wanting a fight, while another was whining that its scabbard had moved and it didn't want to fight anymore. Lu Qingshan didn't really understand what the paintings were saying, but he could feel something deep in them, like they were telling stories about battles, strength, weakness, and how all of it was just temporary. Lan Shui was still taking it all in when Lu Qingshan suddenly dropped to his knees. He looked totally enlightened and said, I get it now. That's when Zhongqing, slightly out of breath and holding a feather duster, showed up. He saw the 2 guests and asked, are you here to see someone? Lan Shui gave him a warm smile, and Lu Qingshan let out an awkward laugh. They both apologized and introduced themselves as people from the Qingshan sect. Zhongqing's face froze. Oh no, he thought, they're from Qingshan? I'm done for. He immediately panicked, wondering if they were there to arrest him for sneaking into the sect earlier. Lan Shui and Lu Qingshan were completely shocked when Zhong Qing suddenly dropped to his knees and begged for forgiveness. He promised he'd never sneak into the Qingshan sect again and asked them not to hurt him. He even said he was super skinny, so they shouldn't feed him to the dog. The two were so confused they didn't know how to react. Lan Shui awkwardly reached out and said, "Hey, get up, what are you even doing?" But before she could help him up, Lu Qingshan grabbed her hand and stopped her. He told her not to be disrespectful and explained that he once heard something about a Western Buddha testing believers to see if they had a pure heart. Lan Shui froze. Her face went pale, and sweat started dripping as she stared at Zhong Qing. She noticed faint images of both Eastern and Western Buddhas behind him and started wondering if he had been sent by Yifeng to test them. Calling him Miss, they finally noticed the feather duster in his hand. Lu Qingshan squinted at it, trying to figure out what it meant. In his mind, he thought, feather dusters clean dust. Dust symbolizes distraction, so cleaning must mean getting rid of messy thoughts. He turned serious and declared, "This must be the first trial Yifeng set for us." Lan Shui nodded and said, "Got it." Meanwhile, Zhong Qing just stared at them blankly, totally confused. Lu Qingshan looked determined and said, "We should clean up the dust." Lan Shui added, "And clear our minds." Both of them suddenly grabbed cleaning tools like they were sacred weapons and got into serious fighting stances, ready to sweep the place like it was some kind of battle. Zhong Qing panicked and shouted, "Wait, you don't need to do that, it's literally my job." Then he looked them over and said, "Are you two really from the Qingshan sect? And again, I'm a boy." Later that evening at Yifeng's martial arts courtyard, the sun had set and the moon was out. Yifeng told Lan Shui not to worry about what happened earlier and thanked her for paying for the book. He smiled and invited them to stay for dinner. In the kitchen, Yifeng handed over the tied-up wolf to Zhong Qing and casually said, "Let's have hot pot with this dog meat tonight." At the dining table, Lan Shui and Lu Qingshan sat with some fruit and watched everything. Lan Shui leaned in and whispered, "Do you sense anything about Yifeng?" Lu Qingshan replied, "I can't even read his cultivation level. His power, it's off the charts." They both kept watching Yifeng as he skillfully chopped ingredients. His moves looked simple, but the food came out so clean and perfect it was like the ingredients were being reborn. Lu Qingshan leaned in again and whispered, "Do you see that wolf?" His face went pale, and sweat ran down his neck. The prince of the wolf clan, tied up, eyes glowing, still glaring at them, was just sitting there, helpless. "That's the sky-devouring demon wolf," Lu Qingshan said, stunned. "It's one of the rarest beasts in the world, and Yifeng is about to cook it like it's dinner." Yifeng picked up his butcher knife and grabbed the demon wolf by the head. The wolf instantly released a strong aura, making Lan Shui worried. She said, "If we actually eat this thing, the demon race might never leave us alone. I'm scared Yifeng will be hunted for the rest of his life." Lu Qingshan leaned in and whispered, "Anyone bold enough to mess with a demon wolf like this probably isn't just some regular cultivator. During the God-Demon War, the demon wolves held off 30,000 Buddhas. That's what saved the demon race." Zhong Qing stared at both of them like they were nuts. Suddenly, the demon wolf broke free of its ropes and let out a loud roar. Lu Qingshan pointed and said, "It's going all out now." But instead of attacking, the wolf dropped to its knees and begged Yifeng not to eat him. Yifeng just smiled and patted its head. "You kinda look like the pet I had back in my old world," he said. Then he offered to let the demon wolf become his pet. Lu Qingshan's jaw dropped. He was totally speechless that the legendary demon wolf surrendered like that. Yifeng walked out of the kitchen holding the demon wolf like a puppy. "Hey, Zhong Qing, look at the dog." Lu Qingshan turned away, shaking with emotion. Tears filled his eyes. He was touched that Yifeng didn't actually go through with it. But Lan Shui reminded him, now's not the time to get emotional. She thought about Yifeng's butcher knife and how it had just stunned a beast that powerful. She figured if borrowing a tool from a true expert could save their sect, then why not try? So she stepped forward and gave Yifeng a respectful salute. "Please, with all due respect, can I borrow your knife to save my sect?" Yifeng slowly turned to her with a serious face, and Lu Qingshan panicked. He slammed Lan Shui's head down and whispered, "You idiot. You're being too greedy." The two stood there sweating, realizing Yifeng wasn't happy anymore. He stood still, holding the knife, wrapped in a strange energy. But then, without saying much, Yifeng casually handed them the knife and said, "If you want it, take it. It's nothing special." They froze in shock, unable to say a word. Yifeng asked, "Why are you two just standing there? Take it. I can make 2 or 3 more in a day." Lu Qingshan grabbed the knife with shaky hands, holding it like it was priceless. He was almost in tears as he said thank you. Lan Shui cheered, and Lu Qingshan cried out, "Looks like heaven hasn't given up on our Qingshan sect after all." Yifeng turned away and thought to himself how sad and broken those two looked. They couldn't even afford a kitchen knife. By morning, Lu Qingshan was all hyped up. "Ning Xuanwu is done for," he said. Meanwhile, over at the Xuanwu sect, someone landed in their courtyard, and the disciples scrambled to get ready for their master. Ning Xuanwu had just come out of his training retreat. Sitting half-dressed on his throne, he waved them off. "No need for food," he said. "Just bring me the messenger from Kaiakshan Gate. I want to see him. The rest of you, leave." A little later, in a private room at the sect, Ning Xuanwu was now fully dressed. Behind him stood a man in a dark cloak, bowing politely. "I'm Yu Wuji," he said. "I've heard a lot about you." "Cut the small talk," Ning Xuanwu replied. "Just say what you came to say." Wuji nodded. With a serious tone, he said, "The thing you were worried about? It's happened." Ning Xuanwu slowly turned his head, his face tight with annoyance. The candle in the room flickered as Wuji continued, reporting that Lu Qingshan had recently reached the level of martial king. But Ning Xuanwu didn't look fazed. "So what?" he said. "I've been a martial king for over 30 years. He's basically a toddler compared to me." He sat down and added, "But I'm guessing you didn't come here late at night just to say that. So what's the real reason?" Wuji's face turned more serious. "Earlier today, Lu Qingshan rushed back to his sect and called all his disciples to the square," he said. Wuji explained that he was actually there when it happened. He'd even yawned and asked the Qingshan sect teacher, Zhu Yun, why they were being gathered so late. She replied, "No idea. Just said it's some kind of trial." Then, as they looked ahead, Wuji and the others went silent. In front of them was the Qingshan sect's trial jewel, a huge, super tough stone that even magic weapons barely scratched. Everyone was standing around it, and Lu Qingshan was already there. The moment they arrived, other disciples bowed to Zhu Yun, but she waved it off and told them to skip the formalities. Lu Qingshan stood in front of the jewel, focused. Then he opened his eyes, placed his left hand on the jewel, and lifted something in his right. It was Yifeng's kitchen knife. The disciples were all confused and disappointed. "Why is he using a broken kitchen knife?" one of them said. Another sighed, "Guess the pressure finally got to him. Should we call the doctor?" Lu Qingshan overheard them. His nerves were already on edge, and their comments didn't help. He was clearly annoyed at the chatter, but even with all the doubt, he got ready to swing the knife. Right as Lu Qingshan was about to swing the knife, he paused. He figured since the knife's power was still a mystery, it was smarter to go easy at first. So he lightly tapped the giant test jewel with it. To his surprise, a small crack appeared right away. But then, it totally exploded. A massive blast of energy burst out, sending shards flying and shaking the whole place. The disciples nearby had to raise their arms to block the pressure. The aura shot straight into the sky like a flare, glowing red and lighting up the dark clouds. The shattered pieces flew out in every direction. Far away in Jiangping City, Zhongqing was holding up the demon wolf and telling it to look at the cool meteor shower. But the demon wolf wasn't enjoying the view, it was panicking. He recognized the powerful martial energy and realized these weren't just random fireworks. That kind of power came from top-tier magic weapons, and he had no idea when the cultivators had gotten their hands on something like that. Back at Yifeng's house, he was just walking by a window when the red light flooded his room. He stopped in his tracks, looked outside, and his eyes widened. He immediately closed his eyes, pressed his palms together, and started praying. "Please let me sit in a palace with tons of beautiful women, have endless money, and never lift a finger to eat or get dressed." His wish turned into a long, dramatic inner monologue. Meanwhile, back at the Qingshan sect square, everyone was frozen. Zhu Yun was speechless, her eyes practically falling out of her face. Wuji swore under his breath, trying to figure out what just happened. Lu Qingshan stared at the kitchen knife in shock. The other disciples were celebrating like their team had just won a championship. Their sect was finally safe. Lu Qingshan's face lit up too. He still couldn't believe how powerful the knife was, and he hadn't even used full force. He instantly fell in love with the weapon, but deep down, he also realized it was way too powerful for him to control. He decided he'd only use it when it was absolutely necessary. That also made him realize something else. If Yifeng had made that knife, then he had to be way beyond even the martial ancestor level. With the shattered stone still crumbling behind him, Lu Qingshan turned to his disciples and announced, "The day after tomorrow, I'll fight the Xuanwu sect head-on." His disciples went wild, cheering and shouting in support. Meanwhile, back at the Xuanwu sect, Wuji squinted and said, "There's no way Lu Qingshan broke through that fast on his own." Ning Xuanwu listened with his arms crossed while Wuji continued, "Same with that weapon. Someone must be helping him from behind the scenes." Ning Xuanwu stayed quiet, thinking hard. Wuji looked up at him, worried. "Should we do something?" Suddenly, Ning Xuanwu tossed him a small blue pill and said, "The poison from the ice toad's been hitting me for 3 days." Wuji's eyes widened as he watched the blue pill roll right past him. Ning Xuanwu turned and walked away, saying it was a reward for tipping him off that day. He told Wuji to keep working hard, and once it was all over, he'd set him free. Wuji dropped to his knees as the pill stopped in front of him and thanked Ning Xuanwu for his kindness. Not far from the secret room, a woman stood in the shadows. As Ning Xuanwu walked past her, he called her Ling and told her to come with him to the sword graveyard. She was Ling Yaoer, a disciple of the Xuanwu sect, and she looked hyped as she leaned against the doorframe and said she couldn't wait. A few moments later, at the sword graveyard, 2 disciples were talking. One reminded the other of their master's warning, never unseal the soul-dementing sword. But the other guy waved it off and told him to quit being dramatic and help open the seal. The first one hesitated but eventually gave in, saying, "Just don't regret it." But before they could even start, the seal lit up on its own. Suddenly, creepy spirits poured out, and the 2 disciples straight up panicked and ran for their lives. Everything those spirits touched got drained. Birds dropped from the sky, and and plants withered instantly. Meanwhile, Ning Xuanwu and Ling Yaoer hovered above, surrounded by protective aura. Ling Yaoer said she hadn't expected the weapon to be that scary. Ning Xuanwu just laughed and said it was only the beginning. After wiping out the Qingshan gate, he said, everyone, gods or demons, would bow down to him. Then, with a cold grin, he told her to never doubt his ambition. The soul-dementing sword rose before them, and Ning Xuanwu declared he'd fight power with power, one magic weapon against another. While the spirits kept swirling around a massive rock, 3 people showed up in Jiangping City. They were gasping for air and running around looking for medicine. One of them started freaking out. There were less than 4 hours before the battle with the Xuanwu sect. Another one started crying and said even without them, Lu Qingshan could still win. They looked ahead seriously and said this battle could affect normal people too, so it was better to escape. Any small amount of spiritual energy could be fatal for them. Meanwhile, Yifeng was hiking in the mountains, leading a group of Jiangping City folks who had their bags packed. He stopped, planted a wooden pole into the ground, and announced they'd found the perfect spot to watch the duel. Everyone cheered. They'd been waiting for this moment. Yifeng, on the other hand, was drooling, not from excitement about the duel, but because he saw a money-making opportunity. He had no idea who was even fighting, but he knew the crowd wanted a front-row view. The spot was high enough that they'd be able to see the battle from anywhere. As the crowd moved toward the cliff, Yifeng raised his voice and said, if you want to borrow binoculars, line up. 1 gold per use, limited time only. That set off a frenzy as people scrambled to rent one. Down at the bottom of the cliff, Ning Xuanwu and Lu Qingshan stood face to face, their disciples lined up behind them. The two just stared at each other in silence. Then Ning Xuanwu smirked and said, didn't think you'd actually show up. Lu Qingshan clenched his jaw and replied, it's not over yet. We'll see who's still standing by the end. As they both lunged forward, the crowd erupted with cheers. Their moves were so fast, you couldn't even see their bodies, just the glow of their auras crashing into each other. When the clash ended, Ning Xuanwu landed a heavy punch on Lu Qingshan's face, sending him flying and coughing hard. He hit the ground, and 3 of his disciples ran to help him, but he quickly got up and told them to stay back like it was no big deal. Ning Xuanwu stood tall, glowing with a powerful aura. Lu Qingshan could feel the difference. He was way behind. If he hadn't reached the martial king level after reading Yifeng's book, he wouldn't even be able to stand there right now. He knew he had only one hope left. That's when Ning Xuanwu looked straight at him and said, I know what you're hiding. Why don't you show me that so-called magic weapon of yours? Lu Qingshan froze. His face went pale, eyes wide, sweat pouring down his face. He couldn't believe Ning Xuanwu knew about the kitchen knife. Behind him, Wu Ji grinned smugly. Ning Xuanwu kept talking. Did you really think I'd let you pull off a surprise move? Then he jumped and summoned the Soul Eater sword. Dark spirits poured out around him, swirling in the air like a storm. The Xuanwu sect disciples cheered as they saw it. Ling Yaoer grinned and said, that sword drains spiritual energy. No weapon can hold up against it unless it's a sacred item. Lu Qingshan nervously pulled out the kitchen knife from behind him. The Qingshan sect disciples were horrified. It's over, one of them said. No way that thing stands up to the Soul Eater sword. Lu Qingshan raised the knife in front of him to block the incoming attack. Ning Xuanwu just burst out laughing. Seriously? That's your magic weapon? A kitchen knife? The Xuanwu sect disciples cracked up. Even Ling Yaoer laughed. What's that broken thing even gonna do? Someone said. I can't believe the great Lu Qingshan turned into some fool with a cheap knife. Lu Qingshan got pushed to the cliff's edge. Ning Xuanwu kept taunting him, daring him to prove how amazing his kitchen knife was. Lu Qingshan looked down at the knife in his hand, panicked. He cursed silently. His confidence was gone. He was terrified the knife would break, or worse, lose all its power, and he'd be left with a useless piece of junk. He had borrowed it from Yifeng, after all. His hands shook, and his nose started to run. He cried out, Yifeng, what should I do? Suddenly, a voice rang out from above. Don't give up. It was Yifeng. He was standing at the top of the cliff with a bunch of townspeople, all using binoculars he'd rented out for gold. Yifeng waved and yelled, how are you already thinking about quitting? While the crowd behind Yifeng kept watching the fight with their rented binoculars, he shouted, that was it? They wrapped it up that fast? I made a bunch of these for nothing. In his head, he was thinking about how all the binoculars were rented out, but he still had no clue what was even happening down there, who was fighting who, or how it was going. Lu Qingshan's eyes went wide when he heard Yifeng's voice. He looked up and saw Yifeng standing on the edge of the cliff, yelling something he couldn't really understand. A whole crowd stood behind him with binoculars. Lu's jaw dropped when he realized Yifeng had actually brought people just to cheer him on. A new wave of determination hit Lu Qingshan. He thought to himself how powerful those few words of support had been. He lifted the kitchen knife high into the air, feeling ashamed that he had ever doubted himself. Backing down now would have been a total insult to the honor of that blade. He planted his feet into the ground, golden aura flaring around him as he stared down Ning Xuanwu. I got this, he told himself. Across from him, Ning Xuanwu was still floating in the air, wrapped in ghostly energy, holding the Soul Eater sword. He sneered and said, what's the hold up? You gonna slice open a can or something? Then he flew toward Lu Qingshan, sending the dark spirit straight at him. Lu Qingshan didn't move. He waited until the very last moment, then swung the kitchen knife with everything he had. A huge golden slash cut straight through the incoming spirits. It looked like a basic move, just an ordinary knife attack, but the power behind it was unreal. The slash kept going and hit Ning Xuanwu head-on. His eyes widened in shock as the golden energy started breaking him apart. The Xuanwu disciples were speechless. The Soul Eater sword, their ultimate weapon, had been smashed in one hit. Ling Yaoer shouted in panic for her master, but it was too late. The golden aura tore through the battlefield, slicing through rocks and carving a long trench in the ground. The shockwave made the whole area shake. Even in the middle of the chaos, Ling Yaoer stayed focused. She ordered the Xuanwu sect to fall back and protect Ning Xuanwu. On the other side, Zhu Yun yelled for the Qingshan sect to attack while they had the upper hand and finished the fight. Lan Shui agreed, and the Qingshan disciples took off after their enemies. But then Lu Qingshan raised his hand and stopped them. "Don't chase them," he said. Lan Shui was caught off guard. "What? But this is the perfect chance to wipe them out." Lu Qingshan pointed to the red flag above them and told Lan Shui to look at Yifeng, who was just silently watching from the cliff. He said, "If we keep fighting, Yifeng might get annoyed." He raised the kitchen knife and said, "Yifeng doesn't care about fame or wealth, but he still let me borrow this weapon. That must mean he doesn't want either side to be destroyed." Lan Shui's eyes widened. She finally understood what Lu Qingshan was getting at. Yifeng wanted balance. Lu Qingshan looked serious as he added, "Yifeng wants us to keep both sides in check, to protect the peace in Jiangping." A ray of light shone down as if to confirm it, and the Qingshan sect seemed to glow in that moment. Lu Qingshan said Yifeng deserved their respect forever, because compared to him, the rest of them were like ants. Meanwhile, Yifeng looked down at the battlefield with a bored expression. The people of Jiangping realized the fight was over, so they started packing up and going back to their regular routines. Yifeng waved and shouted, "Wait, there's still more. You're gonna miss the next big fight, Godzilla vs. King Kong." But nobody listened. They just left, leaving him standing there with all the rented binoculars scattered on the ground. He sighed and mumbled to himself, "Seriously? How am I supposed to make money if they wrap things up this fast?" Later, as he walked through the woods on his way down the mountain, someone called out to him. It was a girl in a cloak. Yifeng's eyes lit up. "Hey, Peng Ying," he said, quickly walking up to her. He tapped her on the shoulder and asked, "What's up? Are you here to meet your childhood crush or something?" But Peng Ying didn't look amused. She stayed silent, pulled off her cloak, and slapped his hand away. "You've got it all wrong," she said coldly. "I came here on my master's orders, to find someone powerful." Yifeng was stunned. "Wait, your master?" She didn't look at him. "You're a good person. I get what you were trying to say, but I'm sorry." She went on to explain that she had only joined the Qingshan sect because a senior helped her. With her background, she had no chance of getting in otherwise. She said it had always been her dream to train there, and she promised that senior she wouldn't get involved with any men again. Yifeng stood there frozen, his heart sinking. He watched Peng Ying walk away as she said, "Goodbye. We shouldn't meet again." A few minutes later, Peng Ying met up with Yu Wuji. He asked, "So, do you see anyone up there?" She replied, "Just one regular guy." Wuji clicked his tongue and crossed his arms. "I told you to find an expert, not flirt around." Yu Wuji reminded Peng Ying about the promise she made to him, which made her panic. She quickly grabbed his hand and said, "Let me explain. Yifeng is just some random guy who runs a small martial arts hall. All he does is daydream and write weird martial arts stuff that doesn't even make sense. He's nowhere near your level." She wrapped her arms around his and added, "If it wasn't for pure luck, I wouldn't have paid attention to him at all." She squeezed his arm, closed her eyes, and said, "You're the only one I care about, so don't be mad." But what she didn't know was that Yu Wuji was silently judging her. In his head, he called her dumb and said the only reason anyone noticed her was because of her looks. He clenched his fists, veins popping, thinking about how he still couldn't accept that Ning Xuanwu, who once wiped out the entire Sword Clan, had lost. And all because of some unknown expert getting involved. Yu Wuji was sweating and growing more tense. He realized that if Ning Xuanwu recovered and found out how badly things had gone, he'd be furious with him. Peng Ying noticed his expression and asked, "Are you okay?" Then something clicked in Yu Wuji's mind. The words martial arts hall and books reminded him of something. He remembered that Lan Shui had bought a book from a martial arts place in Jiangping that helped Lu Qingshan level up. Yu Wuji cupped Peng Ying's face in both hands and asked, "Wait, didn't you say that guy owns a martial arts hall and likes writing books?" She nodded. "Yeah, but he's just a regular guy." Yu Wuji jumped back, laughing. His eyes lit up with a dark idea. In his mind, he thought that if Yifeng really was a powerful expert, he would have stayed out of the conflict and let them all fight it out. So using him as a scapegoat was the perfect move. Rain started pouring as Yu Wuji whispered to himself that Yifeng had no one to blame but himself. He said fate had brought this on, and it was just meant to be. Back at the Xuanwu sect, someone suddenly shouted in rage, It was Ning Xuanwu. His arms were bandaged, and he looked furious, with veins bulging from his skin. He shouted at Yu Wuji for failing to bring any results and instead dragging more trouble to their doorstep. Yu Wuji dropped to his knees in front of him, trembling. Ling Yaoer stood by silently as he begged for forgiveness. I found out that Lan Shui and Lu Qingshan got the knife from an expert in Jiangping, he said. The guy owns a martial arts gym. That caught both Ning Xuanwu and Ling Yaoer off guard. Still sweating, Yu Wuji dropped onto all fours and added, I don't know much else yet, but if you go there yourself, you'll definitely find something. Ning Xuanwu gritted his teeth and glared at him. That's nonsense, he said. If there were any high-level martial arts experts in Jiangping, there's no way I wouldn't have already known. Ning Xuanwu said he wanted to find out which martial expert was backing Lu Qingshan. Ling Yaoer offered to investigate, but Ning Xuanwu turned her down. He said they already had someone lined up for the job. Then he called for Wu Chen. Wu Chen immediately landed on the roof of the room. Ning Xuanwu looked at him and said that even though there were usually restrictions on him, now was the time he needed to act. He asked Wu Chen if he understood what to do. Wu Chen grinned and said confidently, leave it to me. Meanwhile, everything was calm over at Yifeng's martial arts gym. A strange smell was coming from his room, and Zhong Qing walked in with a worried look. He was thinking that Yifeng hadn't come out in 3 days, so maybe Peng Ying's words had really messed with him. But as soon as he stepped inside, Zhong Qing was shocked. The room was a total mess, papers were all over the place, and something was smoking in front of Yifeng, who was sitting at the back. Zhong Qing felt even worse. It looked like Yifeng was really heartbroken. He walked over and said maybe he could help, silently promising to be there for him no matter what. But to his surprise, Yifeng didn't seem sad at all. He was casually writing with one hand and fanning his barbecue with the other. When he turned to look at Zhong Qing, he was surprised by the concern and said, you came at the right time. I was about to give you some barbecue, but it looks like you want to work. Zhong Qing blinked in confusion. Yifeng was whistling and acting totally fine. But Zhong Qing still believed that Yifeng was hiding his pain deep down. He looked at him emotionally and asked about Peng Ying. To his shock, Yifeng just shrugged while munching on the barbecue. She was just my childhood crush, he said. Women only slow down how fast I make money, and how fast I can barbecue. Zhong Qing stared at him, totally speechless. Then Yifeng handed him a stack of books and said, go sell these. I want to upgrade the carriage next month, so it's all on you. Before Zhong Qing could say anything, he found himself already on the street with the books in his hands. He looked down and started reading the titles. Stories of men from 3 countries. The story of a group of women and 1 guy. 3 girls and 105 men. 4 monsters and a guy. He blinked and wondered, who would even buy these? Just then, he tripped on a curb and all the books flew into the air. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Jiangping City, someone was screaming for help. It was a man whose face was already deformed, and Wu Chen was holding him. Wu Chen called him an idiot and said, even if the king of heaven showed up, he couldn't save you now. The man screamed as Wu Chen pulled the spirit right out of him, leaving just a lifeless body behind. Then Wu Chen tossed him onto a growing pile of drained corpses and muttered, too bad he didn't taste good. I hope the guy at the martial arts gym ends up being more satisfying. Just then, someone stopped Wu Chen and told him that young folks should learn to be more forgiving. He said Wu Chen shouldn't head to Jiangping City anymore. It was an old man, clearly annoyed, who said he was on his way to visit an old friend in the city and didn't want any trouble. Wu Chen's face twitched in irritation, and he asked if the old man was joking. He was about to tell the guy to shut up, but before he could say another word, the old man launched an attack. A giant palm came out of nowhere and slammed down toward Wu Chen, with the old man yelling that it was time for him to go down. Wu Chen's face twisted in shock. He didn't expect the old man to be a realm above a martial king. The giant palm hit the ground hard, sending a blast of dust flying everywhere. The impact left a huge crater, but the old man was surprised when he realized Wu Chen wasn't there. He started to wonder how an evil spirit cultivator like him managed to escape. Then it clicked. The old man remembered Wu Chen had pulled something out right before the attack hit, something he now recognized as the sacred stone. And if the emperor's treasure had landed in the hands of someone like Wu Chen, then a small city like Jiangping might be in real trouble. Back in Jiangping City, Wu Chen was hiding and thinking how lucky he was to have the sacred stone. Without it, he'd be done for. He looked over at Yifeng's martial arts gym and smirked. He said he'd already finished off everyone in the other gyms, so this one was the last. With a creepy grin, Wu Chen laughed and said it had been super easy. Then he wondered if this plain-looking gym was really where that mysterious expert had been hiding. He mocked the expert, challenging him to come out and show what he could do. The sacred stone was a powerful artifact once used by the Xuanwu sect's founder during ancient battles. Even against people from higher realms, it could flip the odds in the user's favor. Elsewhere, Ling Yaoer looked annoyed and asked Ning Xuanwu why he didn't just send her instead. But Ning Xuanwu said Wu Chen had the sacred stone, so even if something went wrong, he'd be protected. They just had to wait for him to bring back good news. Back at the gym, Wu Chen stepped in front of it and laughed. He formed a small blue aura on his fingertip and pointed at the gym's entrance. He said the place didn't even have a proper name, so it had to be trash. Then he flicked the aura at the signboard and didn't even bother looking back. He stepped right over the threshold, already thinking about how he was going to destroy the place. But what he didn't realize was that his actions triggered something. The signboard he hit suddenly burst into flames and let out a glowing golden light. Out of the fire, all kinds of weapons formed and aimed themselves at Wu Chen. He cursed under his breath as the intense pressure surrounded him. But instead of panicking, he smirked and pulled out the sacred stone, thinking to himself, "Good thing I've got this. I can handle anything." To Wu Chen's surprise, the attack hit him straight on. Holes opened up all over his body, and all he could do was scream in pain. He had no idea what was happening. His face twisted and started fading away until there was nothing left of him. No trace, just the sacred stone dropped to the ground. Silence filled the entrance of Yifeng's martial arts gym. The dust from the blast slowly settled, and everything went still. A few moments later, Yifeng showed up with Zhongqing right behind him, who had a fresh bump on his head. Yifeng spotted the sacred stone, picked it up, and asked who had dropped it. He said it looked really nice. Then he raised an eyebrow and smiled like he got an idea. He walked over to the broken curb near the gym and pressed the stone into the crack, using it to fix the damage. Zhongqing was stunned, it fit perfectly. A little later, two people were playing Zeni. One of them was clearly dominating, and the other's hand was shaking, unsure of his next move. It was the old man from earlier, and he looked at his opponent, Yifeng, and said, "At first, I thought we were on the same level, but now, I can't see through you at all." Yifeng looked a bit bored and said, "That's not too surprising. I'm the one who taught you chess, remember?" But in his mind, he was wondering why this old guy kept showing up again and again. The old man started sweating. He had visited many times, but even now, he couldn't figure out Yifeng's real power level. He narrowed his eyes, thinking there were tons of secret techniques across the Xinjiang continent, but Yifeng was using something that made him completely unreadable. He didn't think Yifeng was bluffing. In fact, the more serious Yifeng looked, the more he realized, if someone like him really existed, he couldn't just be some random unknown guy in the cultivation world. The old man was lost in his own thoughts when Yifeng suddenly said, "Hey, it's your move. You're in checkmate." "Huh? Wait, when did that happen?" the old man asked, shocked. Then something caught his eye. He had stepped on the curb, and saw the sacred stone sitting right there, casually used to fix the crack. His eyes widened. Could it be? Had Yifeng taken down Wu Chen just like that? Yifeng gave him a polite bow and said, "Thanks for letting me win." The old man stared at the curb, realizing Yifeng had just used a priceless treasure like the sacred stone to plug a sidewalk crack. He started connecting the dots. Was Yifeng sending him a message? Like, "I can use the sacred stone however I want. What are you gonna do about it?" He figured Yifeng knew the value of that thing. And yet, he still used it like it was nothing. That meant he either didn't care about treasures, or he was on another level altogether. Whether it was strategy or a chess game, the old man now understood, Yifeng was way more dangerous than he looked. He smiled to himself, thinking maybe Yifeng had been underestimating him. Then he looked at Yifeng and said, "Hey, come help me check something out real quick." Suddenly, he pulled out his sacred weapon, acting like it was totally normal, and asked, "Can you scratch my back with this real quick? Been kinda itchy." The rake in his hand gleamed with light. Yifeng looked at the rake in awe, like something had just clicked in his head. The old man lifted his chin proudly, thinking that Yifeng had finally realized how special the weapon was. After all, the old man had basically given up half his life and all his savings to get that treasure, the seven holy rake. But then Yifeng walked over, rubbed the handle, and, with tears in his eyes, told the old man to throw it away because it looked super rusty. He said it must have been really tough to do farm work with something that old. Yifeng kept talking, saying he should have realized the old man had just been looking for someone to fix his farming tools this whole time. That's why he kept showing up to play chess and letting him win. The old man was stunned. Yifeng had just completely roasted the weapon he'd been so proud of. Yifeng gently took the rake and told him not to stress. He looked at the old man with pity and said farming wasn't easy. If that rake broke, it made sense why someone would panic, especially if it was their only way to make a living. Then he told the old man to wait a bit while he fixed it and walked inside his place. The old man stood there, gritting his teeth. He was steaming. If Yifeng really thought so little of his seven holy rake, then he wanted to see what Yifeng could make that would be better. Inside Yifeng's martial arts gym, in the forging room, he was about to start working on the rake when Zhongqing walked in. He told Yifeng that the old man who borrowed the kitchen knife, Lu Qingshan, was here to see him. Yifeng called him, the cook from Qingshan farmhouse, and told Zhongqing to let them in. He said he'd join them as soon as he was done with the farm tool. Lu Qingshan arrived with Zhu Yun. She looked around and asked if anyone actually lived in this rundown place, but Lu Qingshan shut her down quickly. He told her not to show that attitude in front of Yifeng. Then he reminded her about the kitchen knife's power and warned her not to upset Yifeng, because things could get messy real fast. Zhuyun rolled her eyes, thinking he was being dramatic. But when she stepped forward, she accidentally stepped right on the sacred stone embedded in the threshold. Her face broke into a sweat. She froze, confused and kind of spooked by the energy coming off it. Then she gasped, realizing what it was. The sacred stone, the legendary treasure from the Xuanwu sect's founder, and it was being used like a brick to fix the entrance. She crouched down to examine it more closely, totally anxious. Meanwhile, Lu Qingshan had already walked inside, and Zhuyun quickly called out, asking him to wait. She caught up to him and told him she felt like something was off with Yifeng and maybe they should just leave. But Lu Qingshan cut her off and said she was just talking nonsense. In the background, the sounds of metal clanging filled the air. Zhuyun asked what he was staring at. Lu Qingshan just pointed to the sky. High above them, golden dragons were forming in the clouds, swirling down around the rake as Yifeng forged it. Lu Qingshan started shaking and nervously told Zhuyun not to freak out, that it was just a small scene. But she noticed he was way more panicked than she was. Zhuyun bit her lip, staring at the rake in disbelief. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It really was the seven holy rake. According to legends, it had once been used by the goddess of the nine heavens to wipe out evil on the Shenqing continent. She looked worried and called out to Lu Qingshan, who also looked tense. Then she asked him again, "It's real, right? That's the actual seven holy rake?" Lu Qingshan didn't say a word, but his silence said everything. They spotted the old man again and noticed that his energy matched the same martial vibe coming from the rake. So, it was pretty clear, he had to be the owner. Lu Qingshan said, "Anyone who can use a sacred weapon like that has to be at least stronger than a martial emperor." The old man sat there, surrounded by a glowing golden aura, super calm but intense at the same time. As they looked at him, both Zhuyun and Lu Qingshan thought he looked kinda like that infamous guy who once wiped out 6 towns in Xianjiang. But that guy had disappeared 30 years ago, so they figured it couldn't be him. Too much of a coincidence, right? Then the old man looked up at them, holding a drink in one hand and giving them a sharp look. He called out to them. Instantly, Zhuyun and Lu Qingshan froze, both sweating like crazy. But just as quick, the old man's whole vibe changed. He smiled and asked if they were there to meet Yifeng. Then he invited them in for tea. Lu Qingshan scratched his head awkwardly and said, "Sure," which completely shocked Zhuyun. She whispered, "Let's just drop off the knife and gift and bounce." But Lu Qingshan looked at her and said, "It's too late for that now." Just then, golden dragons came out of the forging house. Seeing that, Lu Qingshan told her to chill, it wasn't the right time to leave. Inside, Yifeng raised his hammer and slammed it down on the seven holy rake one last time. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, "Finally done." The rake now looked brand new, shiny, sharp, and glowing. Yifeng felt good about it. Lu Qingshan was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Yifeng had just restored a semi-holy weapon into a full-on holy weapon. Zhuyun was shocked too. She said, "How did he even do that?" and thought to herself that with a holy weapon like that, someone could literally dominate the world. She was about to ask who Yifeng really was, but panic hit her when she saw him walking toward them with big confident steps, holding the shiny seven holy rake. She turned to Lu Qingshan and asked, "What do we do?" Lu Qingshan told her to stay calm and pointed at the old man, who still sat there looking cool and unbothered, even though Yifeng was basically charging at him with a glowing weapon. But what they didn't know was that on the inside, the old man was freaking out. He was shaking and cursing in his head. He had just watched Yifeng take his broken holy weapon and actually upgrade it into a real holy weapon. That was the moment he realized, yeah, there's no comparison. Yifeng was way out of his league. The old man stood up, ready to receive the rake. But he was completely thrown off when Yifeng said, "It's not free, but I'll give you a 50% discount." The old man just froze. Even with the discount, he wasn't sure he could afford it. He'd already sold off everything he had just to buy that busted version of the rake. He'd even sacrificed half his lifespan to get it. And now, he couldn't afford to take it back. Yifeng looked pretty bored as he glanced at the old man and asked, "What's wrong? You broke or something?" In his head, he thought the guy was kind of pitiful if he didn't even have a single gold coin. Then Yifeng casually said, "It's just a rake. If you don't have the money, I'll just give it to you." As soon as those words came out, the 3 cultivators standing there were totally stunned. The old man suddenly jumped up, his heart clearly shaken by Yifeng's generosity. He didn't even call him brother anymore. Now it was Mr. Yi, and he bowed deeply to him. Yifeng was surprised. From his perspective, he just fixed a regular farm tool, so he didn't get why the old man was acting like this. The old man, Wu Yonghong, got all emotional and said, "Your kindness is etched in my heart. Maybe you won't need me, but I swear, if you ever do, I'll give my life for you." Meanwhile, Zhuyun and Lu Qingshan were totally in shock. They now realized Wu Yonghong really was one of the 4 madmen who had once finished off 6 towns in Xianjiang. Then it started to rain, thunder cracked, and Wu Yonghong raised his hand toward the sky. He made a serious vow, calling on heaven and earth, saying that if he ever broke his promise, he'd be destroyed. Yifeng just stood behind him holding an umbrella, watching like this was all way too much. Wu Yonghong raised the holy weapon in front of Zhu Yun and Lu Qingshan, who both looked stunned. Yifeng stood on the side and thought, why's this guy being so dramatic? Dude's already on his last leg, and now he's putting on a show. To make it even more extra, a bolt of lightning actually hit Wu Yonghong after he finished the vow. Lu Qingshan was shaken. He couldn't believe he just witnessed a vow of heaven and earth in real life. Zhu Yun, confused, asked what that event was. Lu Qingshan explained that only top-level cultivators, like martial emperors, could make that kind of vow. It was like an unbreakable contract with heaven itself as the witness. And for someone as strong as Wu Yonghong to willingly make that vow to Yifeng, that said a lot about how strong Yifeng really was. Wu Yonghong then said, the contract's locked in. I'll do whatever you want. Yifeng asked, really? Anything I want? Wu Yonghong quickly nodded. Then, to his shock, Yifeng kicked him out of the forging house. Wu Yonghong was confused. He thought Yifeng was the kind of honorable guy who'd need someone like him. But the contract was already signed, so he still felt like he owed him big. Before leaving, Wu Yonghong said, I'll repay your kindness someday. The mountains don't move, the rivers keep flowing. We'll meet again. Yifeng just thought, this guy's just a goofy middle-aged man. Zhu Yun was in disbelief. She couldn't believe Yifeng just brushed off a heaven-bound contract like it was no big deal. Lu Qingshan figured, yeah, only Yifeng could pull something like that off. With Wu Yonghong finally gone, Yifeng turned to Lu Qingshan and Zhu Yun and asked why they'd come. After they explained they brought him a gift, Yifeng casually replied, you didn't have to go that far. But hey, this glass ball's got some nice craftsmanship. Lu Qingshan started wondering if their Qingshan treasure flame orb was really just a basic ball in Yifeng's eyes. But when Yifeng held the orb and felt its warmth, he smiled and said, nice. I can use this as a hand warmer in winter. Lu Qingshan and Zhu Yun were glad he liked it, but deep down, they both felt a little disappointed. Then Yifeng turned to Zhu Yun and said, oh right, I just finished writing a novel. I'll give you a copy as a gift. She was surprised when she saw the title, Flying Snow Shoots the White Deer. Her jaw dropped because she knew the book was pure martial arts. Her own master had gotten promoted thanks to it. Zhu Yun quickly said, we should head out. There's still work at the farmhouse. She thanked Yifeng and took off in a flash, leaving her master behind. In her mind, she believed this book would help her level up fast. Watching them leave all hyped up, Yifeng wondered if they were actually his first fans. Just then, Zhongqing came over and told Yifeng that the carriage was ready. As they walked outside, the coachman greeted Yifeng politely, saying it was an honor to serve him. Yifeng turned to Zhongqing and said, I told you to find a donkey cart to save money. Zhongqing just smiled and said, yeah, but I got you the best ride since you're heading out. Yifeng was so irritated he started coughing up a little blood, but he let it go. Maybe I'll come back as a billionaire, he said. Zhongqing asked, what exactly are you going to do? Yifeng didn't answer. He just told him he'd find out later. Back at Qingshan Gate, Lu Qingshan was mad. He scolded Zhu Yun for taking the book without his permission. I was just about to turn it down, he said. He told her she wasn't ready to understand the supreme pure martial arts intent inside the book. The water's too deep, he added. Zhu Yun pulled the book back and said, let go. You didn't even believe me when I told you about Yifeng. Lu Qingshan replied, I didn't think someone that powerful would be hiding out in a small city like Jiangping. Then he explained that back in the day, Jiangping used to be where the immortal families trained. So it wasn't as ordinary a place as it looked. Zhu Yun asked, so what does that have to do with Yifeng? Lu Qingshan said he suspected Yifeng was part of something big. Meanwhile, Yifeng walked into the Pingjiang Chamber of Commerce with his novel in hand. His wallet was basically empty, but he hoped the deal he was about to make would finally turn things around. At the front, a middle-aged man greeted him and told him Boss Mao wanted to see him. Once inside, a man poured Yifeng some tea and said, I read your novel. It's amazing, especially the Stardust versus part. Yifeng blinked. He didn't remember writing that part and quietly wondered if this guy even read his book. The man smiled and said, us big business folks respect cultured people the most. Yifeng reminded him about the promise to keep printing the book. But the man, who turned out to be chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, Mao Lin, he just waved it off and said, printing those fairy tales of yours isn't worth it. Mao explained that they were a big company with a lot of mouths to feed, and Yifeng's books just didn't bring in money. He said thinking about them gave him a headache. Still, he added, don't take it personally. I'm just being honest. Mao Lin offered Yifeng some money and told him to try his luck elsewhere. He said he was only helping because Yifeng once saved his life. But Yifeng stood up and quickly turned him down. Mao didn't really think much of Yifeng and still had the nerve to tell him to drop by again sometime. As Yifeng walked out, Mao scoffed and thought to himself that Yifeng's books were nothing but worthless junk. Just then, Mao's daughter Yuna walked in and asked who he'd just been meeting with. When Mao asked why she was there, she reminded him that he promised to introduce her to the author of Dream of Red Mansions. She looked around and asked, Wait, was that him? Yuna had been getting totally hooked on Yifeng's novels lately. Mao was starting to worry she was spending too much time reading and not enough learning business. He told Yuna that Yifeng wouldn't be publishing with them anymore. But Yuna knew that Dream of Red Mansions had brought in a ton of money, so she couldn't understand why they'd suddenly cut it off. Mao said, he's just a broke peasant. If I didn't help him, he wouldn't have even gotten that first book out. His work is nothing compared to the real business we're doing here. Then he told her to start learning business from the chamber's senior staff. Yuna said, I hate doing business. Even if I wanted to, reading won't stop me. But Mao shut her down. No more arguing. This is a critical time, we're up against the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. He told someone to take Yuna away and lock her in her room until she went through all the recent accounts. Yuna pleaded with him, but it was no use. She ended up stuck in her room. Meanwhile, on the street, Yifeng was grumbling to himself, thinking how life wasn't easy for anyone. Not long after, Lan Shui and Luo Li spotted him. Luo Li asked, what are you doing out here? Yifeng looked surprised, but he told them the whole story. After listening, Lan Shui said, wow, I didn't expect you to be the one writing all those famous novels around Jiangping City. She added, oh, it just so happens my uncle told us to bring you some fruit. Luo Li was about to say something else but suddenly stopped. Yifeng looked confused. What's up? Lan Shui quickly grabbed Luo Li's head and told her to zip it, then pinched her on the back to make sure she stayed quiet. Luo Li shifted her vibe completely and promised not to let her love for Yifeng's writing distract her again. Then she yelled at Lan Shui, stop pinching me already. Yifeng blinked, still trying to process Luo Li's sudden change. You should really get that constitution of yours checked, he said. Luo Li just smiled and told him to eat as much fruit as he wanted. Yifeng, still a bit thrown off, replied, well, sure, I'll gladly take it. Lan Shui stared at Yifeng, still in shock that he was the author of the books she loved. She hadn't expected someone like him to be so thoughtful and balanced, caring about family, his sect, and his disciples all at once. When Yifeng suddenly turned to her, she quickly looked away. Luo Li saw the whole thing and grinned, clearly noticing Lan Shui's admiration. Then she suddenly had an idea. She wanted to help. Luo Li asked Yifeng to come with her and said she could help him get his book published. The offer came out of nowhere, so Yifeng asked if she was serious. Luo Li nodded and said, yep, my dad's the chairman of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. Publishing a book? Easy. Lan Shui thought Luo Li's move was pretty clever. She figured that Yifeng must have been keeping a low profile this whole time, which explained why he was running into so much confusion. Then Luo Li added a small condition. She told Yifeng she'd publish his book, but only if he kissed Lan Shui. That caught both Yifeng and Lan Shui completely off guard. They both blushed and didn't know what to say. Luo Li turned to Yifeng and asked, so, what do you think of the deal? Yifeng said, this is definitely a first for me. He had never dated anyone before, never even had a crush. Yifeng thought to himself, well, I've been single for years, and this might be my shot. So he decided to go for it. He said he was ready to give up his first kiss and embrace a new chapter in life. Then, trying to sound deep, he added, color is emptiness, and emptiness is color. Lan Shui immediately backed away. She thought that phrase meant Yifeng had reached some kind of ultimate state of enlightenment. Then she remembered a legend, something about how there were thousands of cultivation paths, and one of them involved dual cultivation, where two people connected to boost their strength together. She thought maybe Yifeng felt sorry for her weakness and wanted to help her grow stronger that way. Suddenly feeling embarrassed, she scolded herself for overthinking things. Then Lan Shui said, Luo Li was just being silly. That was an over-the-top request. Please forgive her. She told Yifeng it was an honor just to help someone as wise as him, and they had no hidden intentions. Luo Li was confused. She could clearly see that Yifeng was actually down for the kiss, so she didn't understand why Lan Shui was suddenly shutting it down. Yifeng tried to recover. He told Lan Shui that he didn't mind the request, then tried to make it sound more respectful. He said it wasn't a big deal and he was okay with it, but Lan Shui shut it down gently. There's no need to say anything more. I know I'm not worthy. Then she said they should just head to the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce and talk about publishing his book. Yifeng, on the other hand, was trying to convince himself it didn't matter, but deep down, he started thinking, maybe there's really no such thing as a free ride in life. Later that day, over at the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, Luo Li's dad greeted everyone and asked her to finally introduce him to this friend he kept hearing about. Her dad, Ying, was the chairman of the chamber, and also immortal. Luo Li ran over with her arms open, but Ying told her, you're grown now. Maybe tone it down a little. Luo Li laughed and asked, is this because I messed up your floor tiles again? Ying said the tiles had just been replaced and told her to get up before their guests started laughing. A little later, inside the hall, Luo Li offered Yifeng one of her favorite dishes, dragon beard crisp. While they ate, Ying leaned over to Lan Shui and quietly said, that Yifeng guy, he's got something special about him. Who exactly is he? Lan Shui replied, can't say too much, but even our sect leader has to call him Mystery. Ying was shocked. He hadn't expected Luo Li to bring someone that important, a guy even the Qingshan sect leader respected. Then he turned to Yifeng and asked, hope the food's good? Yifeng smiled and said, it's great, thanks for the hospitality. Ying nodded and said, Luo Li was lucky to meet you. Honestly, it's our family's blessing. Then, without wasting time, Ing looked at his butler and said, starting today, we're helping Yifeng publish his books. Everything, typesetting, printing, all of it. I'll take full responsibility if anything goes wrong. But the butler hesitated. He reminded Ing that their chamber mainly dealt with jewelry, gold, and gear for cultivators. He said they were already competing to stay ranked as a top-tier chamber, and shifting focus could give the Pingjiang chamber an opening to take their market share. Ing gave him a look and said, "Who gave you permission to teach me how to do my job?" Yifeng saw this could cause problems and said, "Really, it's fine. You don't have to go through all this." But Ing replied, "Don't worry. We're already planning to enter the culture market anyway. You showing up with a book just makes the timing perfect." Luo Li, listening in, still thought her dad was kind of making it up on the fly. But Yifeng stopped overthinking it, accepted the help, and thanked him. A few days later, thanks to the full push from the Baofeng chamber, Yifeng's new book, The Supreme Treasure and Zixia Fairy, dropped in Jiangping. The emotional love-hate journey between the main characters struck a chord with people, and the first edition sold out almost instantly. The hype spread all across the city, and even outside of it. Book fans went wild. Lan Shui, holding the book, whispered, "I love you for 10,000 years." She was totally convinced, only Yifeng could write something that powerful. Out of nowhere, one showed up and asked Lan Shui what had been going on in the sect while she was away. She had noticed the training grounds were nearly empty. Lan Shui shrugged and said, "It's probably Yifeng's book. Everyone's so into it, they've kind of forgotten about training." Wan's eyes widened. "Wait, that book's from Yifeng?" She grabbed it from Lan Shui and said, "I'm going to retreat for 2 days." Then she handed over all sect responsibilities to Lan Shui and rushed off with the book. Lan Shui stood there, confused. Zhuyun had just finished one retreat and was already running off to start another. Meanwhile, over in the Jiangping Plaza, a huge crowd was forming. The book had sparked something wild across the city, something no one had seen before. A woman in the crowd said she was waiting for her dream guy to show up riding colorful clouds and propose to her. A guy nearby joked, "Man, if I ever meet my soulmate, I'm gonna say those 3 magic words." Another guy added, "And if love had a deadline? I'd want it to last 10,000 years." The dudes standing behind them were in shock. They figured their turn was coming soon. Out in the forest, a Qingshan sect spy named Wu Ji, who was already at martial master level, sneaked out quietly. His companion laughed at him, saying he'd never seen a mortal jump like Wu Ji just did. Wu Ji replied, "The mortals in Jiangping are all soft, just a bunch of lazy salted fish." But even after all their searching, they still hadn't found any clues about Wu Ji. His companion told him to be realistic and stop wasting time, but Wu Ji wasn't so sure. He felt like the old man might still have another move left to play. Back in the Pingjiang Chamber of Commerce, things were getting tense. Only one chamber could be ranked first in the city, and the review period was coming up fast. Thanks to Yifeng's book, the Baofeng Chamber's income had jumped 20% higher than Pingjiang's, and their popularity was skyrocketing too. A man sitting across from Mao Lin said, "If we don't stop this soon, we're gonna lose the top spot." Mao Lin realized that he had messed up. The chance he ignored had been picked up by Baofeng, and now they were winning. He knew people were probably laughing behind his back. The man across from him said he'd heard Yifeng had actually approached Mao Lin first with the book deal, but got turned down. He added, "That one bad call is costing the whole chamber. If we don't turn this around, you might even lose your seat as chairman." Before he could finish, Mao Lin cut him off and said, "I'm still the chairman. I've got my own way of handling things." Then Mao Lin ordered his staff to prepare a gift. He was going to visit Yifeng in person. At the martial arts gym, Yifeng was in the kitchen with Jiang Qing. Jiang Qing reminded him that he'd promised they'd eat meat if the book sold. Yifeng replied, "That's why I'm trying to make this tofu taste like meat. I'm hoping Baofeng Chamber doesn't end up being stingier than Pingjiang." He started getting a little nervous, wondering if maybe he had gotten ahead of himself. Right then, someone at the door announced the arrival of the Yin family's butler, representing the Baofeng Chamber. Yifeng looked up and said, "Wow, it's like I summoned him with my thoughts." He told Jiang Qing, "Remember, cooking is about creativity, not just ingredients." Then he turned to the butler and said, "You came just in time, I was about to start cooking." Yifeng looked around, wondering where the money was. If the butler didn't have a money box, he figured he'd at least have a money bag, or a string of coins. The butler, a little startled, thought Yifeng was scolding him for showing up too late. The butler quickly apologized to Yifeng and handed him an exclusive deposit card from the Chamber of Commerce. He told him it already had 100,000 gold coins inside from last month's book sales. Yifeng froze. He couldn't believe it, 100,000 gold coins. Just like that, it felt unreal. He started getting excited, thinking, if this is monthly income now, I'm set. The butler noticed Yifeng's strange expression and started wondering if maybe the amount was too low. He quickly excused himself and said he didn't want to bother Yifeng anymore. On his way out, he made a mental note to report Yifeng's reaction back to Chairman Ing. Yifeng just waved him off and said, "Take care, drop by to hang out sometime." As soon as the butler left, Yifeng couldn't hold it in anymore. He grinned ear to ear and gave both Jiang Qing and the demon wolf a kiss on the cheek. 100,000 gold coins coins in 1 month? For him, it was like living a rich person's dream. He called his friends to celebrate and even asked the light man to put "Rich Man" up on the big screen. But just then, Mao Lin showed up. Yifeng was stunned to see him. "What are you doing here?" Yifeng asked. Mao Lin apologized for showing up unannounced and also for how he acted during their last meeting. Then he pulled out an offer, 1,000 gold coins. Mao was pretty sure Yifeng would accept it. After all, 1,000 gold coins was a full year's salary for a normal person. But Yifeng cut right to the point. "What do you really want?" He didn't trust Mao Lin and figured he was planning something shady. Mao Lin went into full sales mode, talking about a cultural renaissance and how the Pingjiang chamber needed to grow with the times. He said they wanted to work with Yifeng again and promised full support for future book publishing. Yifeng reminded him, "You literally told me there was no value in my book, and now suddenly it matters?" Mao Lin tried to cover for it, saying he'd just spoken poorly and Yifeng shouldn't have taken it seriously. "Oh, I definitely took it seriously," Yifeng replied. "And yeah, I am stingy." Mao was annoyed and asked him to speak a little more kindly. He tried again, saying, "Without our help, your book wouldn't sell for much anyway." Yifeng shut it down. "If you've got nothing else to say, then leave. I've got better things to do." Mao tried to save face, saying he was just bad with words and didn't mean to offend. Then he asked, "How much would it cost to work together?" Yifeng replied, "Stop trying to pressure people in broad daylight. Doesn't really suit your image." Mao pulled out a bigger offer, 10,000 gold coins. He said, "You probably wouldn't make this in 10 years. If this isn't enough for you, your appetite must be too big." Yifeng laughed. Then he pulled out the top-tier deposit card he'd just received and held it up. "Seriously," he said. "You think 10,000 is a big deal?" Mao Lin's eyes widened. He didn't expect Yifeng to act like 10,000 gold coins were pocket change. Then it hit him. Baofeng Chamber of Commerce had actually given Yifeng a top-tier deposit card. That meant there was at least 100,000 gold in there. Yifeng casually told Jiang Qing and the Demon Wolf to see the guests out. Back at the martial arts gym, Yifeng kept celebrating his big payday. Meanwhile, over at the Xuanwu sect, Ling reported to Ning Xuanwu that their people had searched Wu Chen in Jiangping City but couldn't find any trace of Wu Chen. She said something definitely felt off. Just then, Wu Feng suddenly appeared. Ning Xuanwu told him to go down the mountain, find Wu Chen, and report back. Ling looked worried and asked if they were sure nothing would go wrong. Ning Xuanwu replied that with the cloak of swiftness on Wu Feng, no one could catch up to him. Even if someone noticed him, they wouldn't be able to see what he was really doing. Back at Yifeng's place, he asked the demon wolf, Wang Kai, to watch the house while he went out for a celebration party. Yifeng told him, "I'll bring you some bones when I'm back." Wang Kai was speechless. He couldn't believe he was being treated like a dog. "I'm a heaven-devouring demon wolf," he thought. "If I wasn't injured, no way I'd be stuck here like this." Deep down, he was also worried Yifeng might suddenly decide to cook up a dog hot pot. Yifeng smiled and said, "You're awesome. I love you, bro." Wang Kai flopped over and pretended to be dead. He wanted to run, but he had followed Yifeng this long and still couldn't figure out just how powerful he really was. Those divine weapon paintings Yifeng casually drew? They had such crazy energy that barely anyone in this world could mess with them. Still, Wang Kai couldn't help but feel annoyed that he was the one stuck guarding the place. Suddenly, he felt something strange. A powerful pressure was headed toward them. Out on the street, Wu Feng had just been blocked by an old man slowly pushing a candy cart. He waited a bit, but quickly lost patience. Then, frustrated, he broke the candy cart and snapped at the old man, calling him a useless mortal. After sensing traces of Wu Chen's energy inside Yifeng's martial arts gym, Wu Feng assumed the one they were searching for had died. But he was still convinced that the person he was after had stayed in that place. He made up his mind, he would destroy the gym and finish whoever was inside. Wang Kai sensed danger and bolted. He knew he couldn't take Wu Feng in his condition. Wu Feng shouted that he'd finish everyone there and that no one would be left behind. But right then, one of Yifeng's divine weapon paintings lit up with a golden glow. The figures inside the painting came alive. Their hands reached out, locking onto Wu Feng. His eyes went wide. He screamed in shock as the golden light poured down on him. He couldn't even fight back. Whatever that light was, it started eating away at him instantly. In just a few moments, Wu Feng was completely gone. All that was left behind were some bones and pieces of the cloak of swiftness. Wang Kai stood there, frozen, staring at the floating figures. He couldn't believe what he'd just witnessed. His body shook as he tried to hold it together, but he was so scared, he couldn't help it. He started crying. Wang Kai finally got it. He realized Yifeng's martial arts and cultivation were way beyond anything he could understand, probably even at martial god level. Now it made sense why Yifeng had always protected him in tough situations. Wang Kai figured Yifeng left him behind to help him recover and grow mentally stronger. He told himself, if I can't even handle being a dog, how can I ever be king? Wang Kai Kai decided to stop complaining and just be a good dog. He believed Yifeng was training his mind through all the weird stuff he made him go through. Watching the door for Yifeng? That was now the biggest opportunity of his life. He was fully committed. Meanwhile, at the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, one of the owners said it was time for the chamber's ranking. He pointed out that having Yifeng with them was a total blessing. The money, the fame, the influence, it was all thanks to him. He said they absolutely couldn't afford to upset Yifeng. As long as Yifeng stayed with them, the Jiangping Chamber of Commerce didn't stand a chance. Ying agreed. He said their butler had told him that Yifeng seemed kind of hesitant about even accepting 100,000 gold coins. So just to be safe, he was thinking of raising Yifeng's cut. The fat guy next to Lan Shui had an idea. He said they should only take 10% of the profit to cover costs and give the rest to Yifeng. Lan Shui gave a small nod when Yingqing looked at her, and that was all he needed. He agreed right away. Lan Shui had actually been told by her master to keep a good relationship with Yifeng. She thought this deal couldn't have been better. Elsewhere, Wu Ji was still trying to find any trace of Wu Chen but had no luck. He also knew the guy who went to check out Yifeng's gym hadn't returned. Wu Ji started worrying that Ning Xuanwu would be mad if this whole thing dragged on. At one point, Wu Ji stopped to buy something, and the shopkeeper told him it would be 103 taels, but said he could just pay 100 flat. When he asked if Wu Ji would pay by cash or check, Wu Ji got mad. He threw the abacus and picked the shopkeeper up, threatening to hurt him for overcharging a cultivator. The shopkeeper panicked and quickly offered to recalculate. Right then, Wu Ji heard someone call out. It was Peng Ying. She told Yifeng that it was better if they never met again. Yifeng, who was just walking by on his way to a banquet, replied, "I wouldn't have seen you if you didn't stop me." Peng Ying was clearly irritated by how casually he said that. Wu Ji looked at her and asked, "Why are you still hung up on your past? Haven't you been with me for long enough?" Peng Ying snapped back, "I'd never fall for someone like Yifeng. He's just a broke, low-level nobody. I'd rather disappear than be tied to him in any way." Wu Ji suddenly used his martial arts and told Peng Ying not to explain anything. He'd just finish off Yifeng himself. Right then, Lan Shui showed up next to Yifeng. He was so shocked he couldn't even react. She quickly told him not to do anything. Lan Shui was scared that if Yifeng fought, the entire Qingshan sect might disappear. She slapped Wu Ji with a palm strike. He cried out, saying it hurt, and was kind of glad she stopped there. But when he looked up, his eyes went wide. There was a giant woman standing in front of him. It was Luo Li. She smacked Wu Ji straight into the ground. Peng Ying rushed over to check on him, calling his name, but he didn't respond. Luo Li and Lan Shui apologized to Yifeng for scaring him. Yifeng said he was lucky they showed up just in time to save him from a huge mess. Peng Ying and Wu Ji were stunned. They couldn't figure out why the personal disciple of the Qingshan sect leader was being so respectful to a regular guy like Yifeng, and even fought to protect him. As Lan Shui asked for Peng Ying's name, the butler stepped in and asked Yifeng to wait a little longer, saying Chairman Ying would explain everything properly soon. But Lan Shui didn't wait. She cast a spell to force the answer out. Peng Ying finally said she was a disciple from the outer sect's Shuan Hall and was under Elder Feng. She had only joined the Qingshan sect a month ago. Lan Shui was shocked and asked who had the guts to let someone like her join without approval. Then she flat out said Peng Ying wasn't qualified and was kicked out of the sect right there. Peng Ying asked, "Wait, you're expelling me because of Yifeng? He's just a regular guy." Lan Shui slapped her and warned her, if she ever messed with Yifeng again, especially under the Qingshan name, she'd erase her from the world. Peng Ying was devastated. She had spent so much just to get into the sect, and now she'd lost everything over the same man she had dumped. She couldn't handle it. Meanwhile, over at the Xuanwu sect, Ning Xuanwu and Ling Yaoer were meditating. Ning said meditation was key to enlightenment. When he noticed Ling Yaoer's breathing was off, he asked if something was bothering her. Ling Yaoer reminded him that they had sent Wu Chen and Wu Feng to investigate the expert in Jiangping City. She still believed the Qingshan sect had set up a decoy. She pointed out that the divine weapon Lu Qingshan had revealed was insane. If someone had helped her build it, Wu Chen and Wu Feng would have rushed in and tried to finish that person on the spot. That's when Ning realized what she meant. Those two weren't even close to being strong enough to deal with whoever made that weapon. Ling Yaoer asked if she could go investigate in person. Ning agreed and reminded her to be careful. The next day, Ling Yaoer disguised herself and went to a restaurant in Jiangping. When the waiter came over, she pulled him closer and said, "I heard you know everything that goes on in the city." Ling Yaoer asked the waiter if he knew the guy who wrote books and ran a martial arts gym. The waiter said that kind of info wasn't easy to get and definitely wasn't free. But the moment Ling Yaoer stabbed a dagger into the table, his whole vibe changed. He quickly revealed the guy's name was Yifeng, and then asked if she wanted him to show her the way. Meanwhile, Yifeng was walking back to his gym, happily singing to himself. As soon as he saw Wang Kai, he said, "Check this out, I brought you something." He unwrapped the food and told Wang Kai to enjoy it. But just as he reached out to pat his head, Wang Kai suddenly bolted. He barked, like he was trying to tell Yifeng something. A few moments later, Wang Kai returned, holding a bone in his mouth. Yifeng stared at it and wondered if his guess was right. Maybe Wang Kai didn't eat the food because he had already swiped some meat from somewhere else. He even asked out loud, "Did you leave this this bone here just to get me to praise you? Wang Kai thought Yifeng had figured it all out. He started panicking, thinking Yifeng wanted him to see the remains of Wu Feng just to remind him what happens if he doesn't behave. Zhong Qing pointed to a ripped-up piece of cloth and asked what it was. Yifeng looked at it and casually said it was just a rag. He told Zhong Qing the house hadn't been cleaned in a while, so he was gonna use it to wipe the dust, especially the plaques and pillars outside. He figured it was better that Wang Kai brought in junk than destroyed something important. Wang Kai was emotional. He felt like he finally understood Yifeng's true intentions. In his mind, guarding the house was the greatest honor of his life. Yifeng picked up the bone. Instead of tossing it away, he threw it like a toy, wanting to play fetch with Wang Kai. But just then, someone else caught it midair, Ling Yaoer. She was struggling with Wang Kai, both of them pulling on the bone like it was tug-of-war. Yifeng stood there wondering what the heck was going on. Ling Yaoer suddenly coughed up blood and let go of the bone. Yifeng rushed over, asking if she was okay. He invited her inside and said he had some herbs ready. He told her that while he wasn't a pro doctor, he knew a bit about medicine and could check her pulse if she wanted. Ling Yaoer refused, saying she was fine and didn't want to be a bother. Yifeng said he had figured it out. From the way she fought so hard for that bone, it must have belonged to her family. He figured she got so upset because it was the only one left. Ling Yaoer knew it was Wu Feng's bone and felt completely exposed. She looked at Yifeng in fear, thinking he must be a monster, since only a single bone remained. Yifeng, still thinking it was just meat, offered to pay her back. "Is the market price okay?" he asked. But Ling Yaoer was already running away. Yifeng shouted after her, "Hey, if something bad happens, someone's gotta pay for it. I'll put it on your tab." Yifeng told Zhong Qing that Ling Yaoer seemed totally fine. After all, she ran off fast enough. Wang Kai couldn't believe it. Just one look from Yifeng had been enough to see right through Ling Yaoer's disguise, and it messed her up so badly that her energy and breathing got out of control. Wang Kai figured that Yifeng's power ran way deeper than anyone could guess. Later that day, back at the Xuanwu sect, Ning Xuanwu lost it. Ling Yaoer reported that there was a powerful expert in Jiangping City, and that both Wu Chen and Wu Feng had been finished off by him. Ning Xuanwu slammed the armrest of his chair and told Ling Yaoer to explain every detail, word for word. Ling Yaoer said Wu Chen didn't even leave bones behind. As for Wu Feng, the only thing left was one bone, and the expert had turned it into a dog toy. Ning Xuanwu snapped. He crushed a nearby pillar with his bare hands. He thought this expert wasn't just strong, he was mocking him and trying to make a fool out of the whole sect. He was furious. Wu Feng and Wu Chen were supposed to be the next leaders of the sect, and now they are gone. He felt like the expert was trying to erase their entire future. Trying to calm him down, Ling Yaoer told him more. She said Yifeng had taken his heaven-devouring stone and used it to build steps, and the legendary cloak of swiftness? Yifeng had turned it into a cleaning rag. Ning Xuanwu's aura burst out so hard the entire hall shook. The elders quickly begged him to stay calm. Then he laughed, a loud, crazy laugh. He said this expert was even more savage than he was. Ning Xuanwu asked for more details. Ling Yaoer replied that Yifeng was super sharp. Even with her best disguise, he recognized her right away. She said Yifeng didn't hurt her, though. He just told her to pass along a message. If someone does something bad, they have to pay for it, and that he had written it down in his records. Ning Xuanwu's eyes went cold. He wasn't about to sit around and wait for this expert to take them all out. He gave a direct order: gather all the top disciples and elders. They were going down the mountain. He said he'd handle the expert himself, take back their treasures, and erase the shame their sect had suffered. The next day, Jiangping City got really crowded. The Xuanwu sect had shown up in full force. Ling Yaoer presented a soldier named Jiang to Ning Xuanwu. Jiang bowed and said he'd follow all orders. Ning Xuanwu told Jiang to check out the martial arts gym, find out who ran the place and what was going on inside. Ling Yaoer warned Jiang to be extra careful. She said even she couldn't figure out how strong Yifeng really was. She told Jiang not to act aggressive, because even one breath from the expert could take him down. She reminded him that the gym itself gave off major danger vibes, and if he ignored her warning, he might end up just like Wu Feng and Wu Chen. Jiang nodded seriously. He got the message. Suddenly, Ning Xuanwu felt like something had slipped his mind. Then it hit him, the terrifying blade in Lu Qingshan's hand. That might have also been made by the expert. Ning Xuanwu started thinking that maybe this mysterious expert was way stronger than a martial king. He got worried that if anyone ticked the guy off, things could get really bad. He told Jiang, if you don't make it back, the Xuanwu sect will take care of your family. But if you try to bail, we'll send all of you to the afterlife together. Ling Yaoer thought to herself that Ning Xuanwu was finally starting to understand just how dangerous this opponent really was. Jiang asked, and what if I make it back alive? Ning Xuanwu promised, you'll become a direct disciple, and you can choose any elder in the sect to be your master. Meanwhile, over at Yifeng's martial arts gym, he was chilling on a reclined chair, saying how nice life felt when you had no stress. Wang Kai was lying on the floor, muttering something about being enlightened. Yifeng saw Zhongqing happily cleaning up and appreciated how helpful he was. Yifeng said, "It was super damp yesterday, so we should take down the 18 paintings from the front hall and let them dry in the sun. Just put them out in the yard so they don't blow away." He figured the paintings didn't look valuable or anything, but they were still good enough to hang around the place. Then someone called out from outside the gym. Zhongqing offered to go see who it was so Yifeng could keep relaxing, but Yifeng said, "We haven't had business in forever. I'll check it out. You should rest, you've already done a lot today." Outside, Jiang was checking out the martial arts gym and thought it looked pretty average. He even felt like it wasn't as fancy as most other gyms he'd seen. As soon as he stepped in, Yifeng greeted him and said, "I can see from your eyes that you're a martial arts genius. Perfect timing, we've got a registration discount going on." Jiang didn't say anything at first, so Yifeng thought he had him hooked. But then Jiang nervously blurted out, "How do I get to the Xuanwu sect?" He instantly regretted it. He remembered that Yifeng and the sect weren't exactly on friendly terms. He was sure he'd just signed his own death sentence. As soon as Yifeng started talking, Jiang started sweating, and it felt like his soul nearly left his body. But instead of hurting him, Yifeng just gave him directions. Yifeng sighed and said, "So you really just came here to ask for directions?" Jiang was stunned. He couldn't figure out if Yifeng was playing some slow psychological trick or if he just didn't care enough to finish him off. At that point, Yifeng was just thinking his gym must really suck if even some random guy was treating it like a joke. Looking into Yifeng's eyes, Jiang started to wonder if maybe all those warnings from Ning Xuanwu and Ling Yaoer were overhyped. Maybe Yifeng really was just a regular dude. To be sure, he decided to test it out for himself. Jiang looked around and said, "Man, this place is totally empty. I guess you don't have many students, huh?" He thought if Yifeng really was some big expert, he'd react to that. But when Yifeng just stared at him without saying a word, Jiang figured, yep, definitely just a regular guy. Then Jiang joked, "You should just turn this place into a restaurant. Probably get more customers." Yifeng still didn't say anything, just pointed in a direction. That sealed it for Jiang. He spun around and left in a hurry, thinking, this guy's totally harmless. He was already dreaming about his promotion, thinking Yifeng was just some clueless guy pretending to be a martial artist. Right then, Wu Yonghong dropped in front of the gym with 3 old martial arts legends, Ancestor Chu Shikuang, Ancestor Sun Zhuge, and Ancestor Li Mo Xie. Wu Yonghong greeted Yifeng and said, "We're just here to show some respect, hope we didn't bother you." Yifeng said, "No worries, come in." As they walked in, Yifeng thought to himself that the folks Wu Yonghong brought along definitely had that legendary master look. Suddenly, Shikuang grabbed Wu Yonghong and said, "Seriously? This Yifeng guy has no cultivation. How's he worthy of our visit?" Li Mo Xie also asked, "Where's that signboard you said had pure martial intent?" Wu Yonghong warned them, "Careful what you say. I already showed you my holy rake. I didn't drag you here for nothing. If you're just here to complain, leave." Sun Zhuge spoke up, "Guys, calm down. We're over 1,000 years old. Let's not act like kids." Then he pointed to a stone step and asked, "Wait, isn't that the heaven-shattering stone?" Everyone froze. That stone was a legendary treasure, something even ancient martial ancestors guarded carefully. But here, someone used it just to patch up some steps? Li Mo Xie was shaken. He thought, this Yifeng dude is terrifying. They went inside and saw the cloak of swiftness hanging out to dry. Wu Yonghong whispered to Li Mo Xie, "That cloak is another imperial-grade treasure." He added, "With stuff like this, Yifeng could literally buy a few mountains and start his own sect." Shikuang couldn't hold it in and asked, "Where'd you find all this amazing stuff?" Yifeng casually replied, "Oh, that? It's just a rag. It looked kinda old, so I used it to wipe the place down." The 4 old men instantly stood straight and gave Yifeng a respectful bow. "Please don't be mad at us for dropping by unannounced," they said. Yifeng smiled and told them to chill. "We all live in the same city. No need to be so formal." But in their minds, the 4 old men were freaking out. This guy has imperial-level treasures and treats them like junk? He's gotta be a martial saint or something even higher. Meanwhile, Zhongqing was almost done hanging up the last of the paintings. As soon as he finished, a golden aura exploded out from the artwork. The 4 old men stared, jaws dropped, as the powerful energy rushed past them. They were so overwhelmed they started imagining wild stuff, like floating in space with an astronaut, a dinosaur, and some golden spirit figures. Shikuang even pictured himself casually high-fiving one of them. Yifeng looked at the old men and thought, why are they so hyped up? Then he guessed maybe they'd been rejected too much in life because of how they looked. He invited them to come chill in the front hall. "Sorry if it's a little messy, we just finished cleaning." When they reached the front hall, Yifeng told the old men to make themselves comfortable. Then he walked off to grab a chess set and asked Zhongqing to boil some water and make tea. As soon as they were sure Yifeng was out of earshot, Shikuang and Li Mo Xie let out their shock. Shui Kuang said he'd never seen martial intent that powerful before, and Li Mo Xie felt like the barrier he'd been stuck at for hundreds of years finally loosened, like the heavens themselves were giving him a boost. Wu Yonghong nodded and said, "Yifeng has to be an immortal warlord or something. I didn't expect to meet someone at that level of cultivation." Sun Zhuge agreed, saying, "That's probably why we we couldn't sense his power. He's probably from the upper world. They all looked around the gym one last time before leaving. The martial intent in there was just too much. They felt like if they stayed longer, they might actually lose their minds. As they walked out, people on the street stared, confused, wondering why these old, legendary-looking guys were coming out of Yifeng's low-key martial arts gym. Shirkwang sighed and said, "Man, what a missed opportunity." Wu Yonghong quickly warned him, "Don't get greedy." Just stepping inside that gym was already a huge blessing. And that's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, hit that like button for more juicy updates, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for regular updates.